Potential Experts is brought to you by Vermonti's. Craving something cheesy, crispy, and unforgettably delicious? Say hello to Vermonti's Pizza, where every slice is a love letter to the Green Mountain State. From classic pepperoni to our legendary mac and cheese pizza, we're serving up bold flavors you won't find anywhere else. Order online and get 20% off your first order with promo code Vermonti20. That's VERMONTY20. Hit us up on Instagram at Vermontes_Vermont Eats to see what's hot and fresh right now. Vermonti's Pizza, homegrown, handmade, and hella good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of Potential Experts. We have a champion on the pod, but we're going to get to that a little later. Let's go ahead and start. Well, first of all, you'll notice Mr. McPherson, Ben, is unfortunately not with us again this week. He is traveling back to the United States. He's going to be watching some football with our squad on Sunday. I am super pumped to have him come over. On a serious note, he's one of my best friends, and I really miss the dude. So I'm pumped to be able to see him. Glad he's, we wish him safe travels. Hope he had an awesome time. He's currently in Argentina, so we hope he had an awesome time exploring Southern America, Central America. He's in Guatemala. He went to Costa Rica, all that stuff. With that being said, let's go ahead and start where we usually do, covering some of the big storylines in the NFL. After that, we'll move to NBA. And then, we have a little puck talk for you guys tonight. Brandon's really pumped about that. So,
such an exciting week. I just got to say, we had, in terms of the action we had going on in the NHL off the ice, just incredible week. It's like trade deadline action.
That's fantastic. So we are pumped too, big time sports podcast. No baseball talk today. Pete Alonso signed with the Orioles. There we go. That's our baseball talk. Let's go ahead and jump right in. And I'm going to hand the floor to Ethan because it was definitely a tough one. Ethan, you were at the game. And the game I'm referencing is the Bills erasing a 21-0 deficit where the Patriots looked like they were just whooping their butts, could do no wrong, looked like they were establishing themselves as the team to beat in the AFC. Not just the AFC East, the AFC period. And it all fell apart, especially defensively and on special teams in the second half. I know it's a tough one for you to talk about, E, but I'm going to give you the floor. Shoot. Just go ahead and shoot.
Yeah, what a game to be at. Unfortunately, it didn't go the Patriots' way, but just watching two phenomenal teams play in a high-stakes football game, watching the reigning league MVP, and he kind of showed why he's the reigning league MVP, and he honestly could go back-to-back. Who knows? I know his stats aren't impressive, but that Bills team around him, I mean, he doesn't really have the wide receivers, the tight ends. All day it was him and James Cook making plays after plays. As far as the second half went, I mean, all three phases of the Patriots struggled. They, other than the Travion Henderson in the second half where he busted out a 65-yard touchdown, they had no offense. And that was really the first time all season that they had no connections. So it was a little alarming to see in a big moment, but at the same time, it's a young team, could be a reality check. But at the end of the day, you can't, no matter the circumstances, if you have a 21-point lead at home, I don't care who you're playing, 5 straight touchdowns is inexcusable. I'll point back to a 3rd and 4 at the goal line where the Bills got a 10-yard penalty for holding. And I'm like, all right, this is a pretty good sign, right? 3rd and 14, they have to score here or they're kicking a field goal. They score. I believe Allen ran out to his right, threw it to Kincaid, touchdown. Or maybe it wasn't Kincaid. I think it was Knox.
It was Dawson Knox.
Yeah. The Patriots, anytime they needed to make a play on defense, they didn't this week. And it was a tough loss. But at the same time, it might be a good thing for a young team to be like, okay, that was our reality check. Let's get back to it. Big game this week against Baltimore. Still have a chance to win that division. But definitely a tough loss.
Yeah. Brandon, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I think when we look at what the expectation is for the Buffalo Bills and for the New England Patriots, the Patriots are a team where right now we can safely say you're coming out of a rebuild. So you're having a fantastic year. Drake May's playing really well. We've talked plenty about the schedule, so I'm not going to get into that. Buffalo has become, especially after the win earlier in the year, a team that you need to at least be competitive with. And the Patriots showed me you can play competitively with the best in the league, which was one of our biggest concerns going into the year. And that shows me that I don't necessarily have to worry about whether or not they can play playoff type games because they did do that. Again, Ethan, you pointed to that 21-point lead. It's inexcusable to be giving up that kind of lead, but this team is still very young. They're trending in the right direction. And again, playing competitive football with established good football team. So is it something to be upset about? Because yeah, you didn't lock up the AFC East, which you were really hoping to do, especially at home. Yeah, it's disappointing. But at the end of the day, there's still so much promise and so much optimism surrounding this team that I think you just kind of got to take one out of the chin and move on. Especially because, like I said, Buffalo's a good team. Josh Allen, Superman, he's been in the MVP conversation at times this year. He's not having as good of a year as last year, and there's more competition for that MVP, but he's still playing really good football this year.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
worth
and
pointing out from a logistical perspective that the Patriots, not only do they still hold a one-game lead on the Bills, in the AFC East, but as it currently stands, they hold that tiebreaker over them. They split the season series 1-1, each team winning in the other one's home stadium, ironically. And with that being said, if it comes down to a tie between the Bills and the Patriots, given that they're divisional rivals, it will come down to divisional record. The Bills' divisional record, obviously each team plays 6 divisional games. The Bills' record currently sits at 3-2, and the Patriots sits at 3-1. So the Patriots certainly control their own destiny. They could just outright beat the Bills if they win out, or even if they go 2-1 the rest of the way and the Bills go 3. And if those 2 wins that the Patriots have are against their remaining 2 divisional opponents, I would assume they're not playing any team twice. So I assume it's the Dolphins and the Jets. If they're able to take care of business against 2 below average teams, then they'll win the division regardless. But I totally understand how you want to get back on track and get a W this weekend in Baltimore, Ethan.
yeah, and I think it's going to be a tough game again because without Milton Williams, he really plugs those gaps for the running game, and Robert Spillane didn't play as well. Those have been 2 massive additions to their defense, especially in the run game. And against a run-heavy team like Baltimore, might not be in their favor. But I still think they have a good chance. Baltimore's been really erratic, but their defense has been looking better and better as the season's gone on.
Yeah, and real quick, because I know we touched about this a little bit, but on the Bills side, I know it's kind of become an inside joke amongst us three. The Falcons Jekyll and Hyde season. But on a serious note, the Bills have actually been the epitome of Jekyll and Hyde, and we saw it in this game. It was a tale of 2 halves. I don't know which one. I don't really know the tale between Jekyll and Hyde. I don't know which one's technically good and which one's technically bad. But the Bills in one of the halves were Jekyll, and the other one they were Hyde. So it was truly unbelievable, and this is why I'm was so reluctant 2-3 weeks ago when we did our contenders and pretenders to put them in the contender category. And I remember just saying they simply have too many no-show games. I mean, if you have a no-show and a half like this in the playoffs, it's very unlikely you're recovering. They were very lucky to recover and find a way to beat the Patriots this past weekend. That kind of performance cannot happen in a playoff game and expect to reach the mountaintop. So I'm not going back on what I said a few weeks ago and putting the Bills in the pretender category. I'm still going to leave them as contenders because we talked about Josh Allen being Superman. James Cook is a great back. They have playmakers, but they just no-show too often for me to really display any kind of substantial confidence in this team. Do you guys have anything on that, or should we kind of, put a pin in this and move forward? What are your thoughts?
I think even if Josh Allen doesn't win MVP, I think Stafford might be the front runner at this point. Josh Allen is by far the best football player on the planet as of December 17th, 2025. And it was incredible to witness it in person, just like him willing the team. We were right behind the Bills bench too, and he was going around to every single guy, pumped up, pumping them up. That's a leader and a phenomenal player, football player too.
More than a football player. Love it. Love it. All righty, guys. Let's go ahead and move forward. Let's talk about a big interconference game. I'm talking between the is it inter or intra conference if they're different? I think it's inter, right?
Yeah, interconference.
Interconference. Let's go ahead and talk about Denver getting a big win over Green Bay and putting themselves due in part to the Patriots' tough loss, putting themselves in a nice position to put themselves as the 1 seed and put themselves in a nice position to remain as the 1 seed. They currently have that outright in the AFC currently 12-2 compared to the Patriots 11-3. I won't lie. Didn't watch a ton of this game. It was in the late afternoon window, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Brandon. What are your takeaways from this game? What do you make of it?
My takeaway is you are justified in your opinions of Jordan Love sucking and the Green Bay Packers being a poverty franchise at the moment because they have all the pieces and the record and the things that tell you that you should be a winning organization right now, but you know what? You fell flat against Denver. That's not a knock on Denver. Denver's a really good team. They deserve to be first place in the AFC. But again, you got to remain competitive in those games. Lose by 2 scores. Green Bay, what are we doing? Step it up, play a little better.
That's a touchdown.
Was it? I thought I saw 2 scores. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
34-26.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Either way,
This was a competitive game towards the end. I mean, I only caught the end of it. I was driving back, but Bo Nix went off. I do think Jordan Love gets too much hate, though. He didn't have a great game this week, but again, he was playing the Denver Broncos defense in Mile High. That's one of the best defenses in football. Jordan Love, I think, is currently first in the NFL in quarterback rating this season. So
That shocks me.
like he's obviously doing something pretty well. His touchdown to interception ratio is really good too. And he's got a top 5 or top 6 passer rating. I don't know. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary hate because he hasn't really won yet. He had that one playoff win in Dallas, but I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know. That's a tough game to win, and he struggled, right? And he's never going to be like this phenomenal fantasy quarterback. But as far as winning you football games, Jordan Love, in my opinion, is a top 15 quarterback for sure. Top 12, maybe.
My issue with the Packers, though, will continue to be every time that I watch them and every time I feel like they might be turning a corner into like the dominant team that they have the assets to become, I feel disappointed in their performance. I mean, I've already hashed it out on this pod, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing again. But early season on, we were thinking this is the best team in the NFL when they started 2-0 and just ripped up the Lions and ripped up the Commanders. And then since that moment, it's just been lackluster performance after lackluster performance. And then you can even point to a few weeks ago, they've been on a 4-game win streak, thinking, okay, they're really turning the corner here. They barely beat Chicago this past week, and we kind of made it clear that we think Chicago's pretenders. So we're seeing a team that barely beat a team that we categorize as a pretender. That's not really a great sign. And then they have an opportunity to go into Denver, and again, it was a competitive game, so I'm not going to kill them too much on it. But I just feel like they leave so much to be desired every single time I watch them. And honestly, if they don't go into Chicago on Sunday Night Football this coming weekend, and they don't have to win handily, but if they don't win, I mean, they're gonna end up being a wild card team, and it won't shock me to see them as a first round exit, and that would be a shame given all of their talent. But I guess this is a good point to segue into. They unfortunately have lost a little bit of that talent. Brandon, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I just want to ask one question about the Packers before we move on to both you guys. Are the Green Bay Packers just a slightly better version of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Very mediocre team that does not scare you. I just say better version because the Packers have a better record. They tend to win more games. Like
I don't know if the Packers are mediocre. I think they're good. I don't know if they're like an elite upper echelon team, but I think they're definitely good. The Steelers are definitely mediocre, though.
I think with no Micah Parsons, they might be like very close. They might be closer to the same tier than you might think they are, because we've seen them have Micah Parsons all year long. I think it's going to take the next few weeks to determine where they rank as it pertains to this particular example, where they rank in relation to the Steelers. I think it's actually going to be much closer. And I think the Packers are in a lot of trouble. So for those that don't know, or maybe you heard the report generally, Micah Parsons did tear his ACL, obviously done for the year. I wish him a speedy recovery. Hope he is available for week 1 of next season, but tearing it late in the season, mid-December, that is going to complicate that for sure. However, we talked about the Packers not really having a lot of those big game breaking players, especially on the offensive end. And we said, hey, well, on the defensive end, we know they got one. We know they got Micah, and they no longer have him. Brandon, talk a little bit about how you think that's going to impact the Packers, aside from the obvious, where their defense is going to struggle.
Yeah, I just not only this is the kind of thing that impacts every facet of the game, because now you're saying that your defense can't get stops, so defense is going to be out there longer. You're going to be relying a lot more on the offense to make big plays, slow it down so that the defense just can stay off the field, because you're not going to be having a lot of these quick series if you can't get after the can't get after the quarterback. And now, not only that, but they traded, was it Kenny Clark to Dallas too. So it's not like, not only did you lose Micah Parsons, but in order to get him, you lost your other really good pass rusher, granted a defensive tackle, but your best defensive lineman aside from him is now playing for the opposition. So you have really compromised the integrity of the team as a whole just by losing Micah Parsons. Because like I said, the defense is going to struggle. Offense is going to have to make more plays to keep the defense on the sidelines.
Do we think they can even win a playoff game without Micah? I guess it might come down to matchups, but, like,
It really
I
does,
mean,
because I think you take who
they still had Rashawn Gary's had this nice year getting after the passer. Like, I don't know. Football is a tough sport to, like, if you lose one guy, unless it's your quarterback, it's still like you can still make up for those holes. Obviously, he's a top 5 defensive player in the league and one of the best pass rushers we've seen in a long time. But in my opinion, it's a team sport. You got 10 other guys out there. I don't know if it's how big of a dip their defense will take.
I will say losing a star pass rusher, though, I mean, Brandon kind of alluded to it earlier. That impacts so many facets. I mean, he impacts how fast the quarterback has to get rid of the ball. He impacts if the quarterback gets flushed out of the pocket or if he can remain comfortable in the pocket and step up and go through his progressions comfortably. He impacts how teams will look at the run game. They can run to the side that Micah Parsons usually would be at to fill those gaps. He will no longer be there to fill said gaps. I think there's just a lot more. Like, if you lose a star receiver, like, it's super tough. But yes, I feel like you can get away with that in a little bit of a better way than you could a star pass rusher that really allows their presence to be felt at least one or two times every single drive, even if it's not even like a stat, even if it's just something they beat their man off the edge and they force that quarterback to step up in the pocket and get rid of the ball half a second earlier than they wanted to, which allows the defensive back to make a play. Like, those are the little things that don't show up in the box score that Micah Parsons does over and over and over again, that I'm not sure that some kind of replacement can just come in and replicate. So I could be wrong ultimately, but I think this is going to impact them pretty tremendously. Brandon, what's up?
And so just to give you some stats, all right. So these are Micah Parsons pass rush stats on the year. This is the kind of asset they're losing because it's you have like you mentioned the different impacts has on the game throughout. Ranking third in sacks with 14, third in quarterback hurries with 51, seventh in quarterback hits with 14, third in total pressures with 79. I'm sorry, you cannot replace all of that kind of production from a single player, even, rotating guys in and out. I'm sorry, you just can't replace that kind of production from on the defensive side of the ball.
And those weaknesses will continue to get exposed in the playoffs. And one team last year that had a boatload of talent but got brutalized on the defensive side of the ball, the Detroit Lions. Look at what the Washington Commanders did to them, going up one side of them and down the other. You guys, what, put a 45 on them that day, Brandon?
Something like that,
I
yeah.
believe
It was in the 40s, low
I think it
40s.
was 45-31, if I remember correctly. Why do I know the best day of your life better than you do? That's neither here nor
I
there.
don't know, apparently, yeah, it's wild.
Ethan, any parting thoughts on this?
Nah, I mean, we've covered it well. I do think their defense will take a dip, obviously, but I don't think they're gonna go to like this god awful defense now.
I guess
I,
time's
I
gonna tell on
understand that.
that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, time will tell. Okay, let's go ahead and talk. All right, one of those ding dong, the witch is dead kind of moments. The Kansas City Chiefs are eliminated. I've never been a Chiefs hater. I guess it's probably because the Giants have never been competitive while the Chiefs have had their reign of dominance. I'm sure that's exactly why. Mahomes just simply doesn't bug me the way he bugs some other people. I get why he does. I'm not saying like, what? How could you not love Patrick Mahomes? I don't love the dude. I just simply don't hate him. But the Chiefs losing to the Chargers this weekend and being eliminated from the playoffs. Honestly, for a lot of NFL fans, it was time to rejoice. Unfortunately, you feel a little bit like a scumbag rejoicing, knowing that he tore his ACL in the process. But Ethan, is it time for the Chiefs to retool? Or can they just run the same roster back next year and hope that a little more luck is on their side?
I think they probably need to start retooling a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if Kelsey hangs it up after this year. But maybe he doesn't want to go out like this either. But, he's getting married this summer, if you haven't heard. This is an aging roster. I'm not saying trade Patrick Mahomes. They can obviously have an explosive receiver in Rasheed Rice. But, aging roster, you can trade a guy like Chris Jones while he still has a lot of value, get some assets, and still try to maximize in Mahomes' window. it might not be next year, right? Because he might not be ready for the start of the season, so that might put them in a hole. But it might be the following year, right? So try to retool towards that. I think could be an achievable goal for them.
I would agree. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
I think that this is a little bit of a sad moment for the NFL in general. And don't mean that for us as fans, I mean for the league. Because we have seen for a while now that every league is better when you have a bad guy. When you have that team to root against. The Patriots and Tom Brady, they were that for so long. And then the Chiefs came along and dethroned them. The Chiefs were the good guy for a little bit. And then everyone just they turned into the Patriots seemingly overnight, to be honest. I was kind of still on that Chiefs bandwagon where I was kind of like, oh, hey, they're good, they're fun, they're competitive for a little bit longer than I think everybody else was, just because it's, out of my conference and all that. But I really think that the NFL is kind of upset that the Chiefs aren't doing this anymore. I think everyone's excited because it gives someone else an opportunity. The window's now open, but the NFL says, all right, well, our big bad guy's not even going to make the postseason now, so where do we go from here? Again, I don't think this is a bad thing from the fans' perspective because we are going to get to see, another team make a run out of the AFC. And like I said on last week's episode, I'm kind of hoping to see the Bills go on a bit of a run here with Josh Allen, just because I feel like Buffalo, you're due for one. But again, it's one of those things that you want the bad guy to be there at the end, and they're not going to be even in the last half of the season really this year. Hopefully for Mahomes, he can get back healthy. Obviously never want to see a guy get hurt like that. But yeah, Chiefs season, it's pretty much over. And Travis Kelce, I would say hang him up now because I don't think you're going to be that much better next year.
It does. Go
And
ahead, Ethan.
Mahomes' injury, like, it's really unfortunate, but I almost want to say it was inevitable, just because if you think about like all the great quarterbacks in history, how many of them have actually put together, like other than Brett Favre, consistent, always playing every single season, right? Brady missed an entire season. Peyton missed an entire season. Rodgers had a couple seasons where he missed at least more than half of it. And then obviously when he was older, he tore his Achilles as well. Those are just a few examples of some of the great quarterbacks of the past 15 years. And Mahomes is in that echelon of those guys. So, I never root for an injury, but maybe this is also good for him in the sense where he can take some time off from the game, recover, and maybe get a mental break too, right? He's been playing into the Super Bowl for what, 5 of the last 7 years?
Yeah. You wonder if the GOAT talk, you wonder if that like affects him. If you wonder if he wants to chase Brady's 7 rings so bad, he almost just needs to take a breath and take a step back because there's always I think Ben said this a few weeks ago. There's always that bigger fish that you're chasing, and right now, Mahomes is clearly the most accomplished quarterback currently playing. So, I mean, what do you do? You naturally chase, the biggest fish that there is to chase, which of course is Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, and his 7 rings. You wonder if he's allowing that to get to him. Let's kind of transition. So, talking about quarterbacks that of the past 15 years, quarterbacks that we grew up watching, we got to turn back the clock a little this weekend, and we're going to be able to do the same thing again this coming Monday night when the Colts take on the 49ers. I'm of course talking about 44-year-old grandfather Philip Rivers suiting up and playing all right for the Colts. They unfortunately were not able to come away with a victory. They certainly leaned on Jonathan Taylor and the ground game. Let's be clear, it was not a old-fashioned, gunslinger Philip Rivers mentality kind of game. But at the same time, his stat line was really nothing to scoff at. He's 18 to 27, so that's a 67% completion percentage. Yes, there you guys go. Congratulations. Then he has 120 yards passing, a touchdown, and a pick. I mean, that's a quality stat line. It's nothing to be like, wait, he did what? But it's certainly like, oh yeah, that's like a very, very reputable quarterback stat line. So, Brandon, talk a little bit about what it was like just seeing a flashback from our childhood playing out there. And we're all, I'm 25 and I'm the youngest on the pod. You both are 27. So we're all pretty old now. What was it like?
Getting to watch Uncle Phil out there suiting up, like that was fun and exciting, putting the gunslinger back in there. He looked like everybody's, drunk uncle at Thanksgiving, getting out there and throwing the football around with the beer belly a little bit. But hey, Phil, welcome back to the NFL. We're happy to have you. It was a good time. And Pags, like you said, played well enough. All right. Nobody was expecting him to light it up. He's 45. He hasn't played in 5 years almost. Like, it's been a minute. So throwing for, a little over a buck, having the touchdown, just absolutely fantastic performance for a guy in his position, especially when he hasn't even spent much time with the team. He literally joined the roster on Monday, got thrown on the practice squad, and was like, hey, guess what? You're starting this weekend. And by the way, it's against Seattle, a team that's, has a good shot to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's not like he's going up against just some, random team. Like, he's playing a really good team. Kept him in it, did what he had to. Obviously, you would have liked to see him get the win, but hey, you know what? You played well enough. I think the Colts, obviously, I think the playoffs are, I think they might squeak in, might be tough, but either way, your season's not over. If you can get Jonathan Taylor going, defense can play like it did in Seattle. I think the Colts are not totally out of it. Winning a playoff game might be a stretch, but getting in, I think, is to some extent a possibility.
Cinderella Philip Rivers to like the AFC Championship game would like
I would
that'd be
love
like the
that.
greatest thing ever. I'm sure Ethan thinks that, but then if it comes at the Patriots' expense, he's probably like, absolutely not. Ethan, what was it like watching, as Brandon said, Uncle Phil, who I'm honestly thinking of Philip Banks from The Fresh Prince when I say that, but Philip Rivers, what was it like seeing him?
Well, yeah, I mean, good for him, man. It was exciting to see a guy who was 44, straight off the couch after 4 years, get out there and play NFL football and keep a team competitive. I want to point out, though, I do think the Seattle Seahawks are frauds. To win a game, kicking 6 field goals, not scoring a single touchdown, they lack like that wow factor in offense other than JSN. Like Sam Darnold doesn't do anything to impress me. He gets the ball to JSN, like great. It's awesome. I love that as a dynasty owner of his, and he's a fantastic playmaker, but they have no ground game. They can't ever get it going. Their defense is solid, but like they played a 44-year-old off the couch. I don't know. I think they're frauds compared to other NFC
Is
teams,
there
in
a way
my
to
opinion.
spin zone this in the sense of like saying, listen, part of being an elite team is finding ways to win even when you're not at your best. And clearly their inability to execute in the red zone and in the Colts half of the field was them not being at their best, and they still found a way. I understand it was against Philip Rivers, but that is a spin zone. There is a way, I guess, if you choose to look at, if you're a Seahawks fan, you so shout out the Liebecks, and you're choosing to look at it glass half full, you can say, listen, we execute better on two 33%, 2 of those 6 drives, and punch those in for touchdowns. It's extra 4 points per, so an extra 8 points total. You win the game pretty handily there. There is an argument to be made for that.
Absolutely. I just think like 6 field goals, you don't even score 1 touchdown. That's alarming.
Yeah, bad execution.
And the Colts aren't a bad team, but they're far from great at this point, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And that game was in Seattle as well. In my opinion, I think the line was like 12.5, right?
Yeah.
And they ended up only winning by 2.
Good teams win, great teams cover.
This is true. This is very true. I don't know. I don't have many other additional thoughts. I didn't really get a chance to watch a lot of this game. I was driving back from the Patriots game.
I hear you. I hear you. Let's go ahead and talk about the final game. That's on our docket. Talking about the Rams' victory at home versus the Lions in a shootout, 41-34 was the final there. Matthew Stafford rallied the Rams from 10 points down. They were down 24-14. Like I said, ultimately ended up winning by 7, so that's a 17-point swing there. Puka Nacua, once again, ridiculous. He's just an unbelievable receiver. Has, him and JSN probably have the 2 most legitimate claims right now to being the best wide receivers in the league. Colby Parkinson, who I actually picked up in Dick Dixon and spot started him because Mason Taylor was out. I would have lost if I didn't do that. So little moves. Brandon, you wouldn't know what we're talking about. We're talking about the playoffs and Dick Dixon. Anyways, it's just you can easily come back and roast me about Gridiron if you wanted to. But I guess not. You got killed,
Yeah.
actually. You got belt.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. What was the final on that, B?
I don't even know. I just know I had a really rough fantasy week because I just lost every single game I was in. Like, not even close. It was bad.
So wait, is your
I
fantasy
don't
season
want to
over?
talk fantasy. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oof. That's a tough one.
Yep. And I would like to say just real quick, because in Gridiron I'm going up against Cats this week, in what is really a game for draft position at this
That's
point.
all it is.
And Cats, I'm speaking to you directly here. I don't know if you're listening to this episode, but I have been given from our commissioner the green light to bench my quarterback because you have failed to pick up an active one when there are plenty available. So I'm not starting a quarterback this week because you're sandbagging. You want to pick up a quarterback and play fair? I'll play fair and put Mariota back in. But unless you go and pick somebody up, Marcus Mariota's sitting on my bench.
Does that game mean anything for draft
It
position?
does, yes.
A little bit. It's basically the difference of picking 5 or 6. It's not a lot, but hey, Katz isn't picking up a quarterback. He's got Mahomes or it was somebody else on. I think it was Daniel Jones. He had Mahomes and Daniel Jones, and then nobody else on his roster.
You
So
guys should
I
do
don't
like
blame him for not picking somebody up, but
you guys should do like a $10 bet. Winner gets $10, so you guys have something to play for, and the draft pick is like a very, very slight difference, honestly.
not a bad
Yeah,
idea.
I mean, it is what it is. You guys can do whatever you want. I'm sitting there with Jeremiah Love. By the way, Ethan, I asked Brandon about the trade when I went over to help
Well,
him
he
out.
told me.
Yeah.
He looks at me and goes, "Nah, I learned my lesson. I'm not doing that." And I was just like, man, it was almost like watching him like get a little whiskers on his chin. He's becoming a man finally. It's like, he's learning.
Hey,
It's unbelievable.
He goes this for the content.
It's for the content.
yeah. I swung for the fences once before. I guess I played a little bit too much Madden and Shell where, you get that first overall pick, you're getting a stud. Well, real life just came and smacked me in the face on that one.
Well, Brandon, you have always liked running backs more than receivers, and
That's
the
true.
generational
That is very
prospect
true.
this year is a running back. So I mean, maybe have you ever seen the meme with the guy? It's like he's digging through like a tunnel and it's like this is what happens when you stop gambling and he stops like right before he hits all like the gold and the diamonds and it's like this and then right below it's like this is what happens when you keep gambling and eventually you reach all the gold and the diamonds. That could be you
Yep.
right now. Like
It
Jeremiah
could
Love
well,
could be
you
your
know what?
gold.
You know what? When Katz talks you into Jeremiah Love for Dylan Sampson and your 2038 third rounder, give me a call because I'll beat that. Okay, I'll beat him on that one.
You know what? I will do that. I will. He'll probably throw in Josh Downs too. Don't be disrespectful.
I'm sorry, my
Who caught
bad.
a touchdown this week, by the way. He was Philip Rivers' lone touchdown. Okay, so that's our fantasy corner of the week. Let's real quick get back. I think the Rams have reestablished themselves, quite frankly, as the best team in the NFL. They had a bad loss, in my opinion, a bad loss to a pretty scrappy Carolina Panthers team 2 weeks ago. But since that loss, they went into Arizona. Not that the Cardinals are good, but they went up one side of them and down the other, beat them 45-17. And then after a lackluster first quarter and a half, they controlled the game against the Lions. Again, they were down 24-14, and from that moment, they outscored them 27-10. So they dominated the second half. Lions are on the brink, guys. I guess I didn't realize how bad it was until like you really look at the standings. Season ends today. Detroit's the 8 seed. They're on the outside looking in, and they're a game and a half out of that out of that seventh spot, out of that third wild card game and a half because of the Packers tie. So they are in very, very deep trouble. And I want to see the Lions get in because they have such an exciting offense. And I want to see Goff and Amon-Ra and J-Mo and Jameer Gibbs. I want to see them in January in a postseason game. But right now, it's just not looking very good. Ethan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a disappointing season for the Lions. Coming into the year, I thought they were maybe the best team in the NFC. Yeah, their defense hasn't really gotten it together. Obviously, they lost the two coordinators this offseason. We were going to see how that played out. And Ben Johnson's done great things with the Bears, and Aaron Glenn went to the Jets. That's just you're asking for what you get when you're with the Jets. It's just a poverty franchise. And to be fair, the Bears kind of were too. But Ben Johnson's making them look better, along with Caleb Williams and other assets that they have. That being said, though, I think this solidifies Matthew Stafford as the league MVP this season. Second in the league in passing yards with 3,700, clips 4,000, excuse me. And he's got 37 touchdown passes, which is by far the most in the league. And he'll most certainly get over 40 as well. And only thrown 5 interceptions this year. He's, of course, working with a phenomenal wide receiver duo. Like you said, Pags, Puka Nacua could be a top 2 receiver in the league. And Devontae Adams is still an elite receiver for what he's doing. He's a red zone hawk. He leads the league in receiving touchdowns. So shout out to Matthew Stafford at 37 years old, finally going to get an MVP and really solidifying himself with a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a slam dunk Hall of Famer at this point. Brandon, any thoughts?
Yeah, so the one thing I gotta add too though to that, Ethan, I don't know if you caught it, but Devontae Adams getting injured in that game as well. So I mean, Granted, this late in the season, I don't think it's going to hurt Stafford's MVP case, but definitely something to watch. It doesn't appear to be anything season ending. They are hoping he's going to play in Seattle, but yeah, definitely just something to watch with the Rams. But looking at the Lions, I kind of want to focus in on them. We talked a little bit about them, being like you said, being a game and a half back, and their schedule upcoming isn't impossible for them to win out, but it's not necessarily an easy fight. Looking at their next games, they host Pittsburgh this upcoming weekend, and then they go on the road for two division games. They got the Christmas Day game against Minnesota, and then another road game in Chicago to finish out the year. And again, those are all, I think every single one of those is winnable for Detroit, but especially Pittsburgh and Chicago, I certainly don't think it's a lock. And then Minnesota, it's a division game, and JJ McCarthy's been kind of up and down. We thought mostly bad early in the year, but the last couple of weeks have given us reason for they're giving Minnesota fans reason for optimism. So I think Detroit can handle any of those games. I do think they're winnable, but I don't think it's a lock. So Detroit, you got to win out and hope for some help to get in. And like you said, Pags, they're an exciting team to watch, and certainly one you want to see.
Yeah, it's just honestly how it shakes down from year to year. I mean, what's a great story one year is the disappointment the next year. I mean, I'm really not trying to troll right now, but I mean, you're living that right now, Brandon, with what the Commanders are, were last year versus what they are this year. It's unfortunate, but it's how it shakes down. Gentlemen, do we have anything else in the NFL realm? Brandon.
Yeah, we got to talk a little bit quarterback situation here. I was going to bring up Jaden Daniels and his injury stuff and him sitting, but I think we can kind of skip over that. It's not worth talking about. He's not playing again this
Yeah,
year,
there's something else.
and understandably so. But the one I do want to talk about is today it broke that Quinn Ewers is going to be starting at least this week in place of Tua getting benched. Given the situation, do we think that Tua's time in Miami is effectively over? Do we think he ever sees the field again in a Miami Dolphins uniform?
I would say yes, just because I think the dead cap hit is going to be absurd. They very stupidly paid him an absurd amount a few seasons ago. So I think they'll probably just ride out the contract, try to kind of fill in around him. However, it's worth considering what their draft pick ends up being this year if they go after a quarterback. Now, granted, the class coming out, a lot of quarterbacks in college really underwhelmed this year. I mean, Arch was going into the year going to be the number one pick. He's going back to Texas. Lenore Sellers is going back to South Carolina. Cade Klubnik, I assume, is coming out for Clemson. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza will probably be the big fish. He'll probably get selected before the Dolphins get to pick. I would guess that the Jets would probably take a shot at him. Maybe somebody else. Maybe the Raiders. Who knows? But there's not a lot of
I mean,
very appealing quarterbacks out there.
I don't know. Dante Moore from Oregon, Ty Simpson,
Simpson does nothing
Diego
for me.
Pavia.
Dante
I think
Moore is
all
a
those
better
guys,
argument. Just Simpson does nothing.
but NFL scouts are rating him high. And I've seen him go in a lot of mock drafts in the first round. I understand what you're saying. He doesn't really stand out. He kind of reminds me of Mac Jones a
Yes.
little bit.
You know what all these names that we're throwing out right now tells me is that this is a weak quarterback class. Not just from the fact that we already knew it was, but the fact that there's not even a consensus top couple of guys. It's not like the, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May conversation we were having 2 years ago, where it's any three of these guys could be the first overall pick and nobody would bat an eye. This is like okay, we got a lot of quarterbacks. Who's going to be the first one off the board? Because are any of them really deserving of it? You know what I mean? Like, this is a very different conversation. And just this fact that we have all these names who have at one time or another been projected to be a top pick this year are in that conversation. It just screams this might not be the year to go draft a quarterback if you're not absolutely sold on one of them being your guy.
Oh, I think Mendoza's probably the consensus one at this point.
Well, yeah, I agree. But again, how many times through the year have we heard different? I mean, we went into the season with Pags, as you said, Arch Manning and Lenora Sellers were consensus top two picks. And now
Yep.
we're not even talking about them being in the draft because they had down
Yeah.
years.
I mean, they're going
Sure.
back to their schools for their senior years.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's something to monitor moving forward. I think Tua will still be with the Dolphins next year. He'd probably be in a quarterback controversy at the very least, going into training camp and through OTAs. But yeah, I mean, he's a bust. Let's call it what it is. The whole tank for Tua thing. After his heroics at Alabama, he's a bum. He sucks, and I hate Tua. Honestly, I guess I don't want to wish ill against him because I don't think he's a bad person, but as a football player, he's one of the least enjoyable players I've ever watched in my entire life. Can't stand watching the dude, and if I never have to watch that guy play football again, honestly, it'll probably be good for both him and me because that dude's probably already gonna have CTE. You might as well just kind of cut your losses at this point and not develop it any worse than it's already going to develop.
All right, I have one more thing NFL wise. It's a blind ranking.
Go ahead.
So here are the premises. It's players you would start an NFL franchise around that are not quarterbacks, and all five are going to be different
Ooh,
positions.
that's fun.
Um, all right, starting off with Jamar Chase.
I feel like he's like 2.
I was gonna say I like it's an elite player, wide receiver, very, very important position, but it is also one Patriots have proved you can win without like a top 5 one. So you need a good, really good wide receiver. You don't need an elite wide receiver to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So
but it also like
I like
let's think of
if we get
longevity.
like a Micah Parsons, if we get like a Micah Parsons in here, like I would want to save that for one. So I'm kind of with you on the
Yeah,
2.
it's I just think like the receiver, like the longevity of receivers too. Like you're gonna have that guy for like I'd say minimum, like if he can stay healthy, minimum 7, 8 years.
All right, up next is PlayStation 2, Pat Surtain.
I love Pat Surtain, but I feel like 4 is probably the most appropriate spot here. You can win without an All Pro corner.
I'd almost go 5 for the same reasons. Corner is an important position if you have an elite one, and it's certainly you need guys who can cover, but you can, like you said, you can win without those. So
Let
I'd go 5.
let
What do you
we
think?
should leave 4 open. I think I know who. I think I know who's coming. I think I know, and if it's not, then I'll own it. We should go 4.
So okay, all
I
right.
think I know.
All right, up next, we have a big man, Penei Sewell.
Ooh,
Do you want to go 3?
it's 1 or 3 to me.
Oh, it's got to be 3. Save one. I save one for the edge rusher. He's going to give us a guy in each trench. Save one for the edge rusher. He's going to throw us Miles Garrett.
All right. And you're taking the heat if it's not 1 because I was leaning 1 because you need a guy to protect your quarterback, but I'll go 3.
Okay. All right. Up next, we got a safety by the name of Kyle Hamilton.
We got to put him
All right,
5.
so that's our
Got to put
5.
him 5.
That's our 5.
All right, and finally, Pags, you alluded to this name. It's Miles Garrett.
Okay.
All right. You know, I'm very happy with this
Do you know?
list. Might in hindsight, I might swap Chase and Sewell, but I'm good with this list as is.
Fair enough. I mean, they went back to back in the draft too, and there was a lot of Bengals took a lot of heat for taking Chase over Sewell. I'm thinking because Burrow, they thought Burrow needed protection, but I guess going Chase was the right move for them.
Hey, I mean Joe Burrow's never been hurt. Why would they need a guy to
Yeah,
protect
no,
him?
never. It's never happened. Ethan, I really, really, really thought when I said to Brandon, wait, no, leave 5 open. I think I know who he's going to throw at us. I really thought you were going to throw Brandon Aubrey at us.
I mean, hey, he scored more fantasy points this year than Justin Jefferson. So,
Wild stat.
That is
Absolutely
a wild
wild.
stat. All right, that's a pretty good blind ranking. Gentlemen, do we have anything left on the NFL docket? Nope. All right, so we are good to transition.
That's not a championship hat. Where's your championship gear? I mean, come on. It's the cup. You said that when we were watching the semifinal game. You said it yourself. It's the cup. Where's the championship
We
gear?
got the cup. We got the cup. Ladies and gentlemen, the New York Knicks are NBA Cup champions. Okay. It has happened. There will be no raising of a banner because the Knicks decided, and I'm actually okay with this move. The Knicks decided to not put a banner in Madison Square Garden. I actually am very cool with that move as they have decided they have bigger fish to fry. They have a bigger goal to chase. But it's clear that they're thrilled and they deserve to feel that way. They made their way through a few tough matchups in the East, Toronto, who's been having a nice year, Orlando, and then they went and multiple times in the game last night against San Antonio, the Spurs looked to be pulling away from them. There were several times that the Spurs lead got up to 7 or 8 and the Knicks would bring it back down. And at one point, Wemby hits a 3 and the Spurs go up 92 third quarter. And even I kind of felt, all right, we hung around enough tonight. The Spurs' star power and their incredible depth eventually got to us because the Knicks were missing Landry Shamet and Deuce McBride, so our depth was not very good. And then Tyler Kolek, Tyler the Creator, and Jordan Clarkson happened. And the Knicks came roaring back and ended up winning by 11 themselves, a 22-point turnaround from the end of the third to the end of the fourth, 124 to 113. The New York Knicks are NBA Cup champions. Jalen Brunson, is the most valuable player. And I am not going to sit here and pretend like this is half of a title. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's a quarter of the title. At most, I'll call it a tenth of a title at the most. But for New York Knicks fans everywhere, if you are a Knicks fan and you're choosing to be miserable about this and not celebrate it, then you're just a miserable human being. This is not the ultimate goal. But this was really, really awesome. Okay. I mean, Ethan called me yesterday. Ethan, do you want to talk about a little bit about our conversation? Because you called me. I was like sitting at home, like, why is Ethan calling me right now? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was kind of curious because this was the first chance the Knicks have actually had to like win something in your lifetime. I was like, how much does this game actually mean to you, right? You know, you alluded to the Eastern Conference Championship, like you get a trophy, but like if we're talking finals, right? Winning a final, this is your first chance of winning a final. In soccer, they talk about how many trophies your team has because they play in multiple competitions, and the NBA Cup is obviously an offspin of these side cup competitions they have in Europe, and they talk about how many trophies you have, and now the Knicks have a trophy. So congratulations to the New York Knicks. Fun game to watch. Do want to talk about Stan Van Gundy for a hot second, man.
What a hater. What a hater.
He's so annoying.
I hate him.
First off, Castle, man, Stephen Castle out of UConn, great player, but Stan Van Gundy, man, he just wouldn't shut up about him. I just was like, I got to put this guy on mute.
Yep.
Anyways, the Spurs are going to be a problem for a long time. With Castle, with Fox, with Wemby, obviously, and Dylan Harper looked really good off the bench last night. This is a team that's going to cause problems in the West. There's no secret. I mean, they beat Oklahoma City a couple nights ago, but great win for the Knicks. Congratulations, Pags. I know it's not the ultimate goal, but I'm sure that felt pretty good.
It was great. I'm not going to lie. And again, I'm going to sit here and acknowledge, 25 times that they have bigger fish to fry. The goal is to be holding the trophy in June. But I'll tell you what, it was clearly, and I had this conversation with Larry because Larry was talking this morning. He was happy too, but he was a little frustrated that the cup final doesn't count in the standings. He's like, it bothers me. We played so well and we played our butts off and we're still the same record that we went into it with. We should have another win. And I said, I agree with you, but let's take away a bigger factor. The players cared about it a tremendous amount. This was not just this is an exhibition. We don't really care. We'll have a lackluster effort. The players, it was a playoff atmosphere, and they gave a you-know-what about it. And the New York Knicks were resilient all night, and they defeated a team by double digits that had just come off beating the Oklahoma City Thunder. So am I sitting here saying the Knicks should be favored over the Thunder? No, I'm not. But am I saying that these past few games have proven that the gap between the Thunder and the rest of the NBA is not as significant as we might have thought it was a week and a half ago? Yeah, I am going to go as far as saying that. So I think it's just something really positive to build upon. Real quick before I play some videos from Ben, I want to talk about one of the craziest stats I've ever seen. In the fourth quarter of this game, the San Antonio Spurs had 6 rebounds. Mitchell Robinson had 8. And the New York Knicks out-rebounded the San Antonio Spurs 23 in one quarter. In a 93-second span, Mitchell Robinson had 5 offensive rebounds, and he ended the game with 10. That kind of dominance over, and Wemby was in the game for a lot of that. That kind of dominance over Wembanyama, 7-5 alien, cannot be understated. And it reaffirms mine and a lot of intelligent Knicks fans' belief that our only chance to truly hold the Larry O'Brien in June is with a truly elite Mitchell Robinson. This game confirmed that, and it was really nice to see Mitch do Mitch things. So feel very thankful for him. Do you guys have anything before I play Ben's video? He wants you guys to react to it. It's nothing crazy, but I will play his videos.
I do have one thing to ask, in that in light of this breaking news, the Knicks will not be hanging a championship banner. Will you be hanging one in your living room?
I texted Matt, so no, but I texted Matt yesterday, and I've told, I think you guys this separately. The next tattoo that I get, very likely, well, I don't want to say the next, but if I'm fortunate enough to see the Knicks win a championship, I will get, and I'm not joking, Jalen Brunson holding the championship trophy somewhere on my body. Probably like maybe my arm right here, maybe right here. I don't know.
Why don't you do it preemptively and even put the year on there? I think that would be a fantastic
You're
idea.
you're a thinker, Brandon. I might have to do that. Regardless, I texted Matt yesterday and said, "Hey, this has always been my dream. If the Knicks win a title, I go, if they win the cup tonight, do I go ahead and do that?" Matt advised against that, and that just made me want to do it so much more. Regardless, I will leave the video as loud as I can. They're about a minute each. We'll just listen to a little Mr. McPherson. I'll put him up on here. He's in Argentina, and you'll see him record this.
Take two. Take one wasn't too clean. I talked for too long. I said 45 seconds. Maybe we'll do a minute and a half here. We'll see. It's beautiful. I'm in Argentina, baby. I'm coming back to the States tonight. First time since July, and I'm coming back as a champion. NBA Cup, light work. Light work. We got Tyler Kolek off the bench, the Timothy Chalamet of Steve Nash's. We got Brunson, top 5 in the league. Cat, defensive stopper, shut down Wemby. Mitchell Robinson, 8 rebounds in the fourth quarter. San Antonio as a team, 6. OG, dog. Bridges, dog. You got dogs all around. I didn't even mention Josh Hart. That guy celebrates like no one else. It was a great win, great stepping stone. Finals are the goal. But some researchers are saying that a cup championship is even harder and more impressive. Let's celebrate. Let's be happy. Ben, talk about that talk for me. And I'm excited to see you guys very, very soon. Be back on the pod. Peace.
There's one more brief video because he said there was a second point that he kind of forgot about. So bear with me on this.
Little second video because I had a long-term point I forgot to make. And I want to get this across. This cup run really laid out the path that the Knicks can take to an NBA Finals because we're going to stroll through the East come April, come May. Couple 4-game series, couple 5-game series. There's no one on our level there. And the West, on the other hand, is going to be a bloodbath. So let's take advantage of that. Whether it's OKC, Houston, San Antonio, Denver. Who am I forgetting? Forgetting someone. The Lakers, maybe? Whoever makes it out of there is going to come in limping to that finals. They're going to be coming off a 7-game series, off of fights, off of dog fights, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to be waiting there, ready to roll. And we'll come in fresh, punch you in the jaw, get to 4 real quick. Cup champions today, NBA champions tomorrow. Come on, baby.
We appreciate Ben's input there. It always makes me nervous. Ben is a much better you-know-what talker than I am. I think he embraces it more. I am always I really believe in the karma of the game. So I know Ben's, obviously messing around trying to get a reaction. Ethan, I'll let you kind of react in general to Ben's video, but obviously one of the main points he made there was, saying the Knicks are going to stroll through the East. Are the Knicks the undisputed team to beat in the East? And I'll just kind of leave it at that. You can react to the video and you can answer that question in doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was a little rage bait like I had with Ben this morning, but I do think he should be posting the pod. Besides the point, I get Ben's excited. I think it might be a little bit too excited to say they're going to stroll through the East 4 and 5 games through everybody. I do think they're the favorites at this point out of the East, but there are some good teams in the East, whether it be Detroit, Cleveland. If Tatum's back, who knows what Boston could be. But I do think they're the favorites, but to say they're going to come out and win each series in 4 or 5 games, I think is maybe a bit of a hyperbolic statement.
Yeah, it just makes me nervous just because, and Ethan, I was very honest with you on the phone last night. The Magic are a good team. The Pistons are a very good team. And you already talked about it with if Tatum comes back, that actually might be the scariest team to me. I mean, we have to see what he'll come back and look like coming off the Achilles tear. Typically, history will show that you're usually much closer to your previous self the year following coming back. So you wonder, Tatum comes back. He probably would be on minutes restriction for a majority of the season. Maybe that would get lifted by the playoffs. I'm unsure exactly what that would look like. That would obviously be up to the medical team for the Celtics. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I think the East is quietly tougher. And Jalen Brunson actually alluded as much to that because he even said in a press conference the other day, because they were asked about, the dog fights, as Ben alluded to, that are taking place out west. And he even said, he's like, I'm not a fan of this whole narrative that the East is weak. You look at the East and top to bottom, there are a lot of quality teams. There are 9 teams in the East right now that are above 500. Very simple math will tell you, and logic will tell you, that not all 9 of those teams are going to be in the actual playoffs. They will all likely be in the play-in, and then depending on the Bucks situation with Giannis, they might weasel their way in there as well. But the East is deep. I mean, I was going through it the other day. There's going to be very few ideal matchups. Even if you are a top 3 seed in the East, you're going to have to play and beat a quality team even in the first round. The best thing that could honestly happen is you get a team that's been sliding and just isn't playing good basketball at that particular point. But like right now, like the Cavaliers would be in the play-in. As poorly as the Cavs are playing, I really wouldn't want to face the Cavs, who everyone was predicting a Knicks Cavs Eastern Conference final. I really wouldn't want to find myself going into Cleveland facing Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter in round one. So I just think there's a lot of moving pieces, and I'm not going to try to speculate the NBA playoff bracket right now, but I do think that the Knicks are the favorite in the Eastern Conference. All right, I am done victory lapping this one. I'm thrilled, but it should just be a stepping stone. And I hope we look back, and I hope the Knicks are the first team ever to win the Cup and the NBA championship in the same season. Obviously, the Cup's only been around for 3 years, so I guess you could say, well, what does that really mean? Not overly impressive pairing them, but hey, all I really care about is the chip. All right.
That would be a domestic double.
Is that what it's called in soccer terms?
Yeah, if you win like your league cup and your league, that's a domestic double. And then the elusive treble is what you win the Champions League, your league, and the League Cup.
How many times has that happened?
Quite a few. I don't know off the top of my head, but PSG did it last
Oh,
year.
okay.
Actually, Man City did it 2 years prior, but it is very difficult to do.
Damn, look at us. We talked baseball because I talked about Pete Alonso signing with the Orioles. We got football, we got basketball, we got soccer, and now we are all set. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I'm kidding. Brandon, talk a little puck with us. Talk a little puck. Go for it, man.
So I would like to actually agree with one of Mr. McPherson's points in that the cup is the hardest trophy to win. We're just talking about two entirely different cups because I'm talking about the Stanley Cup. All right. I'm not taking away from the Knicks. All right. It's impressive. Congratulations. Nice job. Job well done. But the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win in sports. And I know I'm biased, but you will find a lot of sports experts will agree with me. 16 grueling wins in one of the most physical sports on the planet, an 82-game season. It's a tough trophy to win. Now, with that in mind, we have some teams that are gearing up to go on a run for the Stanley Cup, and we are already getting some intense trade action in the last week. Pags, if I had to ask you, last year, you looked at the Edmonton Oilers roster. What was the biggest takeaway from their, downfall, really the last 2 years in the Cup final?
It obviously has to be that goaltending. Your offense is electric. You have obviously McDavid, you have Draisaitl, you even have one of the defensemen in Evan Bouchard, one of the most powerful slap shots that I've seen since Shea Weber and PK Subban were some of the top defensemen in the league. They have incredible top end talent, but their goaltending was always their limiting factor.
Exactly. And that you hit the nail on the head with that one. And so the Oilers finally did something we've been asked them to do for a while. They needed to upgrade their goaltending. That was the biggest knock on them is they have the skaters, but do they have the guy in net? And that was not necessarily a knock on Stuart Skinner because we agreed. He was a very competent 1B goaltender. He can be a guy who your starter can split the games with for the regular season and then could be relied upon to come in and give you a couple spot starts in the playoffs you needed to, come in relief, whatever it may be. That was the perfect role for Stuart Skinner on a cup contending team. He was not, however, a guy you could rely on, especially against Florida, to be your 1A. So what did they do? They make a trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins to go ahead and acquire Tristan Jarry. Now, Jarry, really solid. He's got a couple of cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, a guy with reputation. He knows how to win the big games. It's been a while since those days. But to give you the full terms of the trade, Edmonton gets Jarry and Sam Poulin for Skinner going back to the Penguins along with Brett Kulak, defenseman, and a second-round pick in the 2019 draft. So I've got some trade grades for you here with the Oilers. We're going to start with that one. Again, I'm giving the Oilers a B-. And I say that because you upgrade your goaltending. So, this is overall a positive move. Oilers are obviously doing nothing but trying to contend for a cup right now. So I really commend them for going out and getting a proven vet who has shown he can win a Stanley Cup. I give it a B- simply because Jarry is not a world beater, but he's better than what you had. So good. You gave up, basically a pick, a goaltender, and, a guy who is basically a throw-in to go and upgrade your goaltending. So, giving up really just future assets and then your incumbent starter right now to go ahead and get that upgrade. So good on the Oilers for that. Looking at things from Pittsburgh's side, I'm giving them a C. I really don't like the move on Pittsburgh's end simply because I can't wrap my head around it. You added some okay assets. That second round pick is realistically going to be pretty late, so it's almost a third round pick. The NHL draft historically is not that deep. Even guys who are late first round picks are developmental projects. They're guys who might not see the NHL for 3, 4, maybe even 5 years at times. Really, once you get out of that lottery section, it can be really tough to find guys who can be an impact player even just a couple years in. So that second round pick, it's going to be late. I'm not saying you can't get a guy who can be a meaningful NHL player there, but it's going to be a while before you really see any kind of return on that second round pick. Kulak, as I mentioned, is a throw-in, and then realistically, you got worse in net because as we established, Jari is an upgrade over Stuart Skinner for the Oilers. So, you got a guy back who can be your goaltender for the rest of the year, but again, you downgraded at that position. So it's realistically just a second-round pick who you're not going to see any kind of return on until the big guys are out. The guys like Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, those guys are still on the roster. The biggest issue I have with this move from Pittsburgh side is, are you in or are you out? Because you really can't seem to make up your mind. You've done these things to try and prop up the Sidney Crosby era as it's on its last legs. I understand you want Crosby and them to all retire as Pittsburgh Penguins, and I totally support that. But you have to understand the position of your franchise and that moving those guys would be the best thing for your franchise because you're going to get a halt. You need to rebuild. I'm sorry, but the way the roster is currently constructed, you will not be a contending team again during their careers. And again, it's just the fact of the situation. And they're right outside the playoff spot right now. So are you in? Do you want to go and try and be competitive during their final years? Or are you going to try and have to tell Sidney Crosby he's going to be in on a rebuild? Because as an organization, you need to pick a direction, and they can't seem to figure that part of this
I
out.
feel like the Penguins are almost in the same kind of, like, should we rebuild or should we try to retool that the Bruins have been in for several years? And it's like, I mean, even now the Bruins are still in it because it's like we thought at the end of last year when they totally tanked, they went from like a borderline playoff team to I think they ended up with like the 5th overall pick or something in the last draft.
Yeah.
They really like
It was a fantastic tank right at the end. They did a fantastic job.
yeah,
with
but
that.
now here they are back and they're like if the season ended today, they'd be the 2 seed in the Atlantic. And I think you and every
high.
Bruin fan on the planet would admit that you're not a playoff team. You just kinda a few things have gone your way this year, and you probably would get shellacked in the playoffs.
I would also add one last fun little tidbit on, well, two things. I agree with everything you said about the Bruins. I want to know what we're doing, but big reason for that has been the emergence of Morgan Geekie as the second leading goal scorer in the NHL right now. That came out of nowhere. I didn't think he was going to be any good, but after last year, we knew he could score, but didn't think he was going to do it again. But back on the Stuart Skinner and Tristan Jarry thing, I should add, they actually have already played each other since the trade, just the other night. Oilers pulling off the 6th win. So, neither goaltender can make a stop, apparently, because neither one of them even hit the 900 mark on save percentage. So, obviously, I don't think that's going to continue, but just a funny little tidbit. It was fun watching because they're both wearing their new team's jerseys, but their old team's masks. So, just a funny little thing if you got a clip of that.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that. I will eventually look that up. You want to talk about the other blockbuster going down?
Yeah, so this is the big one. This is an off-season trade. This is not a mid-season trade. This is the kind of move that you will not see in the regular season 9 times out of 10. That is Quinn Hughes, a Norris Trophy defenseman being dealt to the Minnesota Wild. Going back the other way to Vancouver, Zeev Buium, defenseman, center Marco Rossi, forward Liam Ogren, and a first-round pick in this upcoming year's draft. Talk about a haul for Vancouver, and the Wild get, like I said, a Norris Trophy offensive dynamo on the blue line. And should I add, scored a goal in his first career game with Minnesota against Boston. Unfortunate to watch on my end because we got our asses beat. But hey, it was an entertaining game to say the least for Minnesota fans. Now, trade grades again on this end. I'm giving the Wild a B+. And I say that because you added an elite, like I said, an elite blue liner, a guy who can score, do realistically everything. He's Cale Makar light, as I like to put it. He's not quite at that level, but he's still a really, really good defenseman. And he's bringing a lot of an offensive punch to a blue line that desperately needed it because you had a lot of young guys on that blue line and a lot of veterans. The veterans were more defensively oriented, not necessarily giving you the offensive support that you want and like Quinn Hughes is going to bring. And the other guys they do have that two-way game, but I'm sorry, but Brock Faber and Zeev Buium were not bringing the offensive look that the Wild would want, just because they're still young, they're still developing, 21, 22 years old, I think 23 at most for the two of them. So very young players still. A lot of room for growth there, but I think that this is really setting them up because Quinn Hughes is still only 26 years old. He's going to be in the league for a long time still. Minnesota's really got what could be their future captain because he was the captain in Vancouver. My one knock on this trade for Minnesota is just I feel like you gave up a little bit too much in terms of your current assets to get him. I understand that this is the kind of move that you felt you needed to make, and I totally understand from Vancouver's perspective, you got exactly what you should have gotten for him. I don't think the asking price was too high. Just looking at what Minnesota's roster looks like, what their prospect pool is left with, I just don't know if this is a team that's ready to win the cup right now. I think they need realistically another forward to add to their forward group if they want to really contend for a cup this year. And the big knock on that is you gave up Marco Rossi to get him, who was your first round pick. And he's already been getting some first line looks with Vancouver in the short time that he's been there. You gave up a valuable NHL player to get Quinn Hughes, and it's kind of compromised your forwards a little bit right now. Long term, I think you can be okay, but you definitely need to add somebody else up front, and their draft capital is now somewhat limited, losing that first round pick this year to go and try and make a big splash. So overall, B plus because you acquired a franchise caliber player, but definitely moving in the right direction. And then looking at the Canucks side of things, I'm giving the Canucks an A plus. So they really added a lot of talent to a prospect pool that was kind of bare. I looked over the Canucks prospect pool before I was doing some research for giving these grades, and I didn't see any big names that jumped out at me. Now you've added Zeev Buium, who was my candidate for Calder Trophy this year when we talked about things preseason. You got Marco Rossi, who's a really talented young forward. Liam Ogren, a first-round pick in his own right, hasn't necessarily put it together yet, but still very young, still a lot of talent there. And then a first-round pick upcoming this year, which is probably going to be mid to late first round. So again, I really like what they've added. Vancouver gets a lot younger. Maybe they can build something here, and they still have Elias Pettersson, who's a really solid player, still very young still as well. I really like what the Canucks did because they're in a bottom of the league right now. They're not going to do anything this year, so really helping them build for the future.
Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about the Wild, and now discovering that giving up Rossi. Now they're dealing with some forward issues. That's kind of a trend you see in a lot of sports. I feel like assets get thrown around so often, but the reality is, in order to acquire a good player, you have to give up either an enormous amount of assets or some assets and another good player of your own. And more often than not, when you give up that good player or players, even if they're just role players, you find that you have gaps and holes in different areas. So I mean, the Wild are discovering that now. I mean, I just like make a connection. Like when the Knicks a few years ago, when they traded R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly for OG Anunoby, I'd make that trade 100 times out of 100. The Knicks clearly won that trade. OG Anunoby's ridiculous, but in the aftermath, we discovered, man, our bench is really depleted of assets. Emmanuel Quickly was a spark plug off of our bench. Who's going to fill that role? Ultimately, Deuce McBride did do a nice job of filling that. But it's funny how, one problem gets solved and another one kind of emerges as a byproduct of you solving that problem. But that's kind of a theme in sports. And, they have another, I'd say, 60 games to figure it out. So hopefully they can figure it out and make a run.
Yeah, and look, like I said, just looking at that forward group, their top line is really solid with Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, and Matt Boldy. They've all been fantastic. Dania Yurov is currently centering their second line. He's been decent, not a world beater, but another first round pick. And then Yakov Trenin and Vladimir Tarasenko on his wings. So there's some talent there, but this is not a cup winning second line. Like you need to add at least one more forward to this group if you want to really contend.
Yeah, I mean, listen, not everyone can win the cup, man. I mean, it takes a special group to win the cup. That's all.
Yes, it does.
That's all. I guess that's all I can say. I mean, you really need a Jalen Brunson-like guy, in order to win the cup. Brandon, want to go ahead and introduce Pag's picks because I do have a pick.
Well, that is right. I got to get my thing up. I'm sorry. Unlike you, I don't have this quite memorized. I want to read it off. Pag's Picks is a podcast segment created solely for entertainment and informational purposes. The content shared during the segment does not constitute betting advice or financial recommendations. Any wagers placed based on the opinions or commentary expressed in Pag's Picks are made at the sole discretion and risk of the listener. Hosts and creators of Pag's Picks are not liable for any losses or damages resulting from betting activities. You must be 21 years of age or older to participate. Pags, take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to continue my generational hate of the Green Bay Packers this year. I really, really do think that defense, as I talked earlier about, I really do think that defense is going to be severely compromised with the loss of Micah Parsons. Actually, I said Sunday Night Football earlier. I apologize. It's actually a Saturday Night Football game between the Packers and the Bears in Chicago. I think Chicago is going to be juiced up for that. They have an opportunity to pretty much wrap up the NFC North with a victory. And I just think they're going to be clicking on all cylinders. The Bears are currently slight underdogs in that game, although their money line actually is minus, so it's minus 110. I'm going to tell you to take the Bears at minus 110. If you can get a better deal, because Green Bay is favored by 1.5, if you can somehow get a better deal by taking the Bears plus 1.5, and so you kind of gift yourself a point there, be my guest. But regardless, I like the Bears to win that football game. Book it. I lost last week because I picked the Patriots because I didn't like how they were underdogs at home against the Bills. And if they could maintain a 21-0 lead, I could victory lap right now. But they couldn't. Terrible job. So I have to go into this week holding my L. Hopefully the Bears get me back. Brandon,
That would be
we have anything else? Ethan had to take off. So if you're like, hey, I haven't heard Ethan in a minute. He took off. You kind of a little after Brandon start talking hockey.
yeah. So yeah, no, I'm pretty much wrapped up here. I think that's it for
That is
tonight.
a good that's a good one.
Unfortunately, it's been a good one. I'd love to talk more sports, but I think that's all we got on the docket tonight.
That is accurate. And it's nice and early. It's about 6:22, so you'll listen to this on your Friday morning commute or your Saturday commute, wherever you are heading. We appreciate you guys as always. Love you guys. Thank you for listening.
Follow us on the socials.
Peace.